All right, this is ODQ, and today I thought I would make it pretty much about my setup, not just in game, but also touching on the, my computer a little bit because I don't run Windows. I run a Linux distribution or a Linux operating system called Pop! OS on my machine. I've been running it and using it solely as my just my operating system on my main machine for quite some time. I would say probably right around a little over a year, something like that. This is during the pandemic kind of time, and just kind of lost faith in Windows, and I've always kind of dabbled with Linux, and so that's what I use. I use uh, something called Lutris to install EverQuest. I also play. This says World of Warcraft Classic. I did play that for a while, but um, I played, but I stopped playing that. It's but I use it for Hearthstone as a card game that I play too. So I installed EverQuest and the Blizzard, you know, BattleNet thing to be able to play their games on here. Um, and it just basically makes it easy to install the game in Wine. And there seems to be a lot of confusion. This is in no way, as long as you can get it to work in Linux and play, and you play it in a normal way. There's nothing against the terms of service or anything to play the game in Linux. You're not using any kind of emulation or any kind of it's emulated a little bit, but it's not really a you're not doing machine emulation or anything like that. This is all on your machine. So it works fine, and I don't even box or anything, so I'm not doing anything shady or anything. And just because you're using Linux doesn't mean you're cheating or hacking or anything. I use Linux because I don't I don't like how Windows breaks all the time, and I don't like the lack of control you have with Windows. And not that you can't break things with Linux, you certainly can, but when you break it, it's on you, and it's much easier to fix usually than with Windows. Sometimes with Windows, they will break things so severe they brick machines, and it's not that common, but it happens. Uh, with Windows or with Linux, you just reinstall. A reinstall in Linux is a way easier, faster process than Windows ever was and ever will be. So anyway, I'm not going to preach everybody should use Linux kind of a thing, but this is what I use. If I cover other zones beside the snowy ones, like for example in Empires of Canark, for some reason the pixels. This isn't a Linux specific, technically, really issue, but the textures aren't handled real well in the Vulkan drivers for the graphics. So the only option I have, if I want it to look like it's meant to, is to run EverQuest without a video card going, just totally on the onboard on the processor and using shared memory and stuff like that. And that it's a little more taxing. This is actually a laptop, not a computer like a desktop. So I'm very conscious of heat. Heat will kill computers in general, but you especially have to be careful about heat with laptops, even nowadays. And if you want to make sure your laptop lasts a good 4, 5, 6 years or so, which I do, I don't change machines every other year or something like some people. I don't have the money. I don't want to spend the money to do that. Okay, I get a machine. I want to use it for a good, reasonable stretch, at least 4 years, before I even think about upgrading or getting a different machine. So that's how I roll. Anyway, so this is my stuff here. Um, Now let me know if you want me to give you a little bit more of a rundown of my operating system a little bit, and if you're curious about it, I could kind of point you in directions and things, maybe even to do a more complete video on my computer operating system. But for right now, I just wanted to kind of chime in that I don't use Windows. So I'm going to switch over to the game here. There we go. Let's had to make sure it was captured the mouse. And I've changed my setup now also on my Necromancer here. I've gone much more dot heavy for my just regular setup. I named it. These are all these are different spell setups. This is my thing for a quick camp check. These are just all the buff spells that I can possibly have. I don't use this that much because I have this maxed out and everything. But when there's a new level increase and they got new stuff coming up, you have to upgrade your spells and everything. I have that for when I have to, upgrade each spell as I level up individually and stuff. So I can upgrade them there. Then I have to go to this to buff a little bit more often. Now I do have to go here anyway because I don't have any buffs at all on my main setup here because I have so many dots, which annoys me a little bit, but I could see the logic in it, and it was a little silly. Because they have spell gems that I don't use. I might use every hour and a half or 2 hours or something, and then I'm pretty much done playing anyway. So once in a while, the mobs will hit me hard enough that it'll break the rune or something like that. And then after the fight's over, if I have to cut bait and run, I have to, mend the spell line so I can get my buffs up. The stupid Unity thing does not include Destiny or the rune. I think it's stupid it doesn't. I wish it just had all the basic. I also block, speaking of this, I also block the poison one that eats away at your health. I don't use it at all. I don't like it, how it eats away at your health, because since I'm kind of a casual player, my pet's good enough, but it's not quite as beefy as like a raid, an EM earring for like a raid geared and a raid pet. So he needs to soak up like all the healing. I can't be stealing healing from him very much. Otherwise, the Merc may not be able to keep up pace with the damage he'll be taking when I'm using my combat pets. So that's also another reason why I don't use the mana buffs all that much. What the heck you call them? Anyway, the one that you use your life for mana, and then the other one that kind of converts your life to mana slowly, sort of like a canny thing, but slow. If I do that during combat, or if I've done it and I make a pull, the Merc will get heal, and it just kind of creates a little bit more stuff you have to pay attention to. I just choose, since I solo all the time anyway, I'll just do old school. I'll just kind of med. When I feel like I have to med, I'll med. Sit there, grab a drink of coffee, go to the bathroom maybe if I have to, or whatever, just a little downtime. It feels kind of classic-ish. As classic as I'm willing to go at my age with this game. If you want to go true classic, you play P99. So yeah, I'll just run down the spells here. These stayed the same. Wounds, the combo disease one that everybody uses, and Rolling Shadow. These three I had on before. I added Wretched. I had this before, but I added Wretched, Haze, and then I also added Leech. I added Leech instead of the Undead Only, or maybe Masma or whatever, the plant one, or even the progression one, because I don't mess with progression. When I get the progression spell, it's only level 1, and in my opinion, because it also isn't altered. The bad thing about the progression dot, that life tap dot that we have, is that if you pay attention to the damage it's doing, it isn't modified. The AA bonuses we get for dots does not apply to that one. So actually, this is why, this fire dot, the pyre of, whatever, the pyre of K, whatever the heck that that one, or big fire dot that everybody loves, that does as much, if not a little, more base damage. Probably almost. It's not quite as much as the progression dot. But it gets all kinds of bonuses from your AAs. That's why it crits for like millions of points, right? And your progression dot, it doesn't. I think it crits, but it doesn't. The crits are not altered or benefited by your AAs at all for the progression dot. So if you're using the progression dot for the lifesteal, stuff like that, I mean, this costs less than this, and it's it's a little extra healing. It basically does about the same. It'll serve the purpose, and it'll save you a little mana. So that's why I use Leech instead. And then that I had before. So Leech, Haze, and Wretched are the three new dots. And I like to put everything in order of time, of length, not damage, because it's easier to prioritize if you have to recast something, the timing and stuff like that. Because I don't use Gina triggers or anything. I do have a trigger thing, but that's just for fun, for the pet, for the backstabs on the pet. This is something I like. So I do, and then the macros here. These macros I had before, and then these I had to add a third dot macro for. So let's cast first three, second three, third three dots here. I also moved. I used to have the pet bonuses, Frenzy and Fortify. I used to have those just going off automatically whenever I'd snare or send the pet in, but I felt like that was a little bit of a waste. I should save those for the rare mobs, because my pet does fine on the trash without that stuff. So I noticed that Zelen, he had just a single button for his pet buffs. So I made one like he has. That's the Frenzy and the Fort right there. And then this one's all the DPS stuff that I use and also silencing because I can't use my regular pet for rares. I'm not a raid guy. I have to use the charm pet if I'm going to take down a current rare. Now, at TOV rares, my regular combat pet Elwood, he can take those fine. Most of them anyway. The ones I've taken on in the open world. I don't like to go into dungeon type environments either. I like to stay out in the open. So any rares that are out in the open, those are the ones I take care of, because I don't care about progression. As long as I can find one or two rares that I'm confident in being able to take down, I pretty much just milk those camps for the entire life of the expansion for the most part. It's just how I roll. Not everybody does that. A lot of people probably think of that as boring and just I don't see the point of doing that. Well, that's what I like to do. So all the raiders, they love their thing, and I like my thing. I love the advice they give, and they really know their stuff. And I appreciate the people that are putting content on YouTube and on websites and stuff that help all players, and especially 12 strings. He makes sure to give advice that kind of encompasses more than just the raiding people. It feels like he's sensitive to various levels of gear and things for the most part. So that's cool, and I appreciate that. So I'm just going to since this is convenient here, I'm going to take this out before that one gets too close. And go through this. And I used to weave my swarm pets in between each dot macro. So I did this and this and that, right? I just go straight now. since I have 3 extra dots and it feels more fluid when I'm doing it like that. Then I just spam my swarm pet nuke key afterwards a few times. And one thing I have noticed is that I do seem to have to recast some dots sometimes. It's probably just my gear to be able to finish one of these off unless I want to just wait forever. So that's the end there. I like to have Oblivion at the end. Just by the sound I can tell it's done. So we got a little proc here for chaotic power. That's good. So I do that one more time. Then I'll do the swarm pet one more time with my 4 key. Hit 4 again, 4 again. Now if I just sat, I'm just going to go ahead and sit here. I'll let you sit. Sorry, I left the trigger for the backstabs up. Sorry. I like to hear the thump for his extra damage he does. And this is turning out, probably because the chaotic power procced, not so bad. But I suspect that I'm still going to get this running at full course into the proliferation second dot part before this mob dies. Maybe. I don't know. Maybe Elwood's going to knock her out. Nope, there we go. So it proliferated. And now it's going to really, they're going to, yeah, see, it's like 18k, 18k a tick. That's going to finish off a lot of stuff. That's why I like having this. A lot of times I can just sit in bed throughout that. And right here where I'm ending up with mana here by the end of this is about where I used to end up with my old setup of just 6 dots with other more utility type things just for comfort that I had in my old lineup. So that's how this one kind of rolls. Sometimes if I do have to, because of just rolls of the dice, maybe I didn't hit some twin casts, or I didn't hit, I got unlucky with some crits and stuff. Instead of recasting this one, which is Leech and a couple of the big shorter dots, this one right here is the most expensive line. So I think of this as the most expensive, and this is the longest, and very mana efficient, I suppose, or just some of this. Like this is really the most powerful dot we have, the wounds. If it goes its full course, it does the most damage of all of them. But the second line here, which has got Wretched and the 2 poison dots, is, I think of it as sort of my kind of bang for the buck, efficient kind of bang for the good damage for the amount of mana you spend, right? Because Wretched, it's not super long, but it's longer, and it's pretty cheap by today's standards on dots. It's 7,300. Crystal's a little pricey, but for the damage it does, it's a kind of a bargain, if you will, right? And then Haze is, again, is similar to Wretched. It's kind of cheap for dots nowadays for the damage it does. It's kind of economical, if you will, or value oriented. So if I have to recast something because I've been unlucky with crits, I usually hit this middle dots number 2, 6 key instead of 7. It would be the choice of either of these two, and I'd hit this because it's going to spend a little less mana, and odds are it's going to finish something off, especially if I throw in another cast of Swarm Pets or something. So overall, to reiterate, what I changed was I added this macro, and I added this macro, and over here I dumped some extra stuff to add 3 more dots. This combat bones, what I call, it's something if I want to slow or charm live mobs, I like to have a lineup for that. And all I did was I kept the big hitting dots. I took Leech out, and for the last one I put in Char Bones. So if I So what I'll have to do is when I use this one right here, I'm going to have to switch out. And if I plan on charming something for one of these, probably this one here, the harm shield, I'd probably put this one in. And this is going to charm a mob that's live. It'll debuff it first, and then it'll charm. Or I'm sorry, it'll debuff, and then it'll nuke it to try to change it undead, and then it'll try to charm it. The debuff, the terrorist stuff, it also does a mild magic debuff, so it helps out to make sure that, and also does fire debuff too, so hopefully char bones will hit a little bit more consistently instead of just using this off the bat without debuffing. Bones slow. This will, simply slow it. This just has the char bones and then terrace again, because when I hit this right here after I set, because I'm already gonna have my regular pet out if I'm gonna just slow a mob. So or if I have a charm pet out and I want to try to slow the rare that I'm doing, I can do that with this lineup too. Although if you have a charm pet, they're so beefy, I suppose you can slow it if you want, but it's not as big of a need. Then when I have Elwood out, sometimes I'll need to slow something. So that's that lineup there, and then this is just all the buffs and everything. So I'm going to go back to the taps. The taps one might change, or I might add a third spell line that subs out Leech, and because the next expansion pack, we're due to, I'm going to take Leech out to show you, we're due to have a replacement for, where is it at? Plant Magic Corruption, maybe? There's an undead. I'm in damage over time. There's an undead dot line that we have. I forget the name of it, but they've basically kind of abandoned it. The last one we had, I think it's a level 108 dot. I'm looking for it. Pardon me. It's not there. Is it in magic now? Maybe. Yeah, it is. All right. There we go. Scourge of Destiny. It didn't get revamped with the other stuff, and although there are still AAs that you have to dump into it for the focus lines, so it is focusable. But as you can tell, man, it's like super cheap. It's still in the old system, right? This used to be awesome, right? Because it deals. So this used to be a really good dot, especially in TOV. It was really good to use before they did the revamps and stuff. And then after the revamps, this became garbage. I guess it still isn't bad though, really. As long as you're using it against undead targets only, right? 74-64. Why am I not using this? Why am I not using this here? Well, this is going to change. Let's try it. Let's just try it right now on the fly, a little testing here. Because that's more damage than Leech does. It's more damage. You're not going to get the life return. But, there are other suggestions, since I'm kind of rambling a little bit more. Extra rambling. Bonus, right? Um, what was I going to say? Oh yeah, the for 12 strings and Zelen, they were. Okay, yeah, it casted. There we go. It's on a timer. All right. All right. There's my second round of. Let's just sit here. See if we get a similar effect than we did for the last mob. What level is this mob? It's 113. And the last mob may have been 112. These aren't always 113. Some of them are level 112 too. I'll play around with this off, you know, off the video, and maybe report back at some later date, or maybe just in the comments section or something, how I think this measures up. For one, if nothing else, it is extremely, economical, if you will, as long as you're facing undead, right? Is this gonna finish up here? No, it's not. Irritating. That'll finish him off. Alright. What was I getting ready to say about 12 strings and Zelen? Good quality, wonderful streamers. This isn't really anything bad. It's like just the difference in basically EverQuest lifestyles, I think. The EM level of their pets, maybe? I'm old. I forget. I lose my train of thought easily. Can't really think what I was getting ready to say. I got distracted by the spells and stuff. Alright, well, there we go. This is as quick as I typically do for these videos. Have a good one. And I think I'll probably keep this method here to have the extra dots on. If I go into older zones and you don't need like all these massive dots, I like how they're kind of tiered, right? These long, these are economical, these are bigger, right? So odds are if you go into some older zones, depending on how old, you don't really care. There's no danger of your pet dying or anything, and the fights are going to be quicker. So you're going to skip this one, the long dots, and you're either just going to only do these 6, or maybe even just do 3, either these 3 or these 3, depending on what the situation is. They're kind of tiered, kind of like that. These are the shorter ones, that at least these 2 anyway. The Ignite Memories one is another 30-second dot, so I could, for this last button, have only 30-second dots, but the Ignite Memories, let's check that out. I know I said I was done, but I'm not. I think that's magic? No, it's Mana Drain, I think. Yeah. Well, actually, Ignite Intellect. This is another dot they didn't touch in the revamp. And while it costs a little less, when you get like 5K or below, things tend to be a bit underwhelming. And unless it's a caster mob, I don't think this bonus applies because it's not draining any mana. If it was a recourse, right, like leeches, it would matter. That effect is a recourse effect. This is not a recourse. This is a bonus based on the mana it's drawing from the mob. And if the mob has no mana, then it's not going to apply that extra damage. And even with that extra damage applied, it's only about 6k. And that's not even as good as leech per tick, even though it's way less. It's economical, I suppose, in a sense, but the undead only one was better than that, and it lasts a little bit longer, so you get more bang for your buck. So yeah, I think it was fire. Was it under? No, it was under magic, I think. Yeah. I keep testing that. All right, I lost my train of thought before I tried to get back. It's lost. I don't know. Anyway, you guys are great. Appreciate all the help that those other YouTubers bring, as well as Hammock J. I find I like the old school feel he has to how he approaches his Nobergard stuff and everything, and just kind of exploring and kind of taking on progression. I'm not a progression person, but I appreciate when people are doing it and stuff, and I enjoy watching it. He's got a nice attitude, pretty laid back guy. I like that. So shout out to him too. Keep it up. I watch your videos, usually mainly the Nobergard videos, but that's because the main character I play is a Necro, and that applies to be a little bit more. It's a little bit more interesting to me. Hang loose, and I'll see you next time. All right, bye.